A 2014 Camry came into a shop last year with a rough idle and a hesitation off the line at every stoplight. The owner said it felt like the engine was hunting for RPM, surging up to 1200 and dropping back to 500, over and over. The check engine light had been on for a week. The shop plugged in a scanner, pulled a P0121, and told her the throttle body was failing. Quoted her $650 for the part and the labor. She paid it, and the car ran fine for about a month, until the idle started surging again. Because the throttle body was never the problem. The throttle position sensor had lost its calibration, and the fix was a key cycle sequence that costs nothing and takes less than 5 minutes. That sequence is in the service manual on the shop's own computer. Here is what nobody at that counter mentioned. The 3 procedures I am about to walk you through are documented in every OEM service manual published in the last 20 years. Toyota prints one, Honda prints one, Nissan, GM, Ford. Every manufacturer that builds an electronic throttle body also publishes the relearn sequence that resets it. The shop did not invent the diagnosis. They read the same manual you could read, and they charged diagnostic labor to arrive at a parts sale instead of a free reset. My name is Walt Renner. I ran a repair shop for 41 years in Wisconsin. Small engines, appliances, cars when they came through the door. I closed it 3 years ago, not because I wanted to, but because the manufacturers stopped selling me parts. I have no sponsorships. I have no affiliate codes. I am not selling you a scan tool. What I am going to do is show you the 3 relearn methods, ranked from 0 tools required to a basic OBD scanner. And then I am going to show you how to tell whether you actually have a dead sensor or whether you just need the relearn. That is the part shop skip, because a dead sensor is a parts sale and a relearn is not. That same reset exists on oxygen sensors, brake modules, evap valves, anywhere a free procedure sits in the manual and the customer does not know it. I started keeping notes on how to spot that gap before you buy, and I want to mention them once. 4 questions, a database directory, a seal decoder. The bench test, $49, waltrenner.com. I will not bring it up again. Let me tell you what a throttle position sensor actually does, because if you understand the mechanism, you will never fall for the unnecessary replacement again. Your engine needs to know exactly how far the throttle plate is open at any given moment. Not roughly, exactly. On older vehicles, pre-2005 or so, a cable ran from the gas pedal to the throttle body and physically pulled the plate open. The TPS was a potentiometer mounted to the throttle shaft. Inside it, a tiny wiper arm dragged across a resistive strip. At closed throttle, the sensor sent about 0.5 volts to the engine computer. At wide open throttle, around 4.5 volts. The computer used that voltage to calculate fuel injection timing, ignition advance, and transmission shift points. Every time you pressed the gas, that wiper moved across that strip. On modern vehicles, that cable is gone. Drive-by-wire took over. You press the accelerator pedal, a pedal position sensor reads how far you pushed it. The engine computer calculates how far to open the throttle plate, and a small DC motor inside the throttle body moves the plate. The TPS in a drive-by-wire system is a verification sensor. It confirms the motor actually moved the plate to where the computer told it to go. Most modern throttle bodies carry 2 TPS sensors running in opposite voltage directions. Sensor A might read 0.5 volts at idle and 4.5 at full throttle. Sensor B reads 4.5 at idle and 0.5 at full throttle. If the 2 signals do not add up to roughly 5 volts at all times, the computer throws a correlation code, P2135, and puts the engine into limp mode. That is a safety system, and it works. So here is why the sensor loses calibration without actually breaking. Over thousands of miles, a thin film of carbon and oil vapor builds up inside the throttle body and around the edge of the throttle plate. Your engine computer is watching the idle RPM constantly, and it compensates for that buildup by learning to hold the plate slightly more open at rest. It adjusts the TPS baseline a fraction of a volt at a time. That learned adjustment becomes the car's stored operating parameter. Now you clean the throttle body, or a shop cleans it, or someone disconnects the battery for an unrelated repair. The plate can suddenly close further than the computer expects because the carbon is gone, but the computer is still running the old calibration. Or the battery reset wiped the learned values entirely. Either way, the TPS signal no longer matches what the engine computer thinks idle position should look like. The result is the symptom cluster that sends people to shops. Rough idle. RPM surging between 500 and 1,500 at stoplights. Hesitation when you tip into the throttle from a stop. Sometimes a hard stall in gear when you come to a red light. And when the computer sees a TPS voltage that does not match the expected range, it sets a code. P0121, if the voltage is in range but does not agree with the map or MAF sensor readings. P0122, if the voltage drops below the minimum threshold, usually around 0.2 volts. P0123, if it climbs above the ceiling, around 4.8 volts. P0124, if the signal is intermittent, cutting in and out. Here is the part the shop does not explain. P0121, the most common TPS code by a wide margin, does not mean the sensor is broken. It means the signal does not match what the computer expected based on other inputs. Carbon buildup on the throttle plate changes the resting position of the blade, which raises the idle TPS voltage above the stored learned value. That is a calibration mismatch, not a hardware failure. And the fix for a calibration mismatch is a relearn, not a replacement. Now I will be straight with you about something before we go further. Not every TPS code is a relearn. If you have a potentiometer-style sensor, the old wiper-on-strip design, and the wiper has worn a dead spot into the resistive track, no relearn will fix that. You will see it on a scan tool as the voltage dropping to 0 at a specific throttle angle and jumping back when you move past it. That is a hardware failure. The sensor needs to come out. Same story if the connector is corroded, if a wire is broken in the harness, or if the throttle body motor itself has failed. I am not telling you to ignore a genuine failure. I am telling you to check for the calibration fix first, because it resolves the majority of P0121 codes and it costs you nothing. Method 1 is the ignition cycle relearn, and it works on the widest range of vehicles with 0 tools required. You do not need a scanner and you do not need a wrench. Park the vehicle. Turn off every accessory. No air conditioning, no headlights, no radio. Turn the ignition key to the ON position without starting the engine. On a push-button vehicle, press the start button once, without your foot on the brake. Wait 10 seconds. You might hear the fuel pump prime and the throttle body motor click. That is the system initializing. Turn the key off. Wait 10 seconds. Repeat this on-off cycle 4 to 5 times. On the final ON cycle, wait a full 10 seconds, then start the engine. Let it idle in park for 2 to 3 minutes without touching the accelerator pedal. Do not blip the throttle. Do not touch anything. The engine computer is rewriting its baseline TPS voltage during those minutes. If the idle is still rough after 3 minutes, shut the engine off for 60 seconds and restart. Let it idle for another 3 minutes. That double idle session with the 60-second gap between them is the procedure Toyota and several GM models specify in their service manuals. It works because the 60-second shutdown lets the computer store the new learned values into non-volatile memory before the second session refines them. Method 2 is the accelerator pedal relearn, sometimes called the pedal dance. This one is manufacturer-specific, and I need to be honest with you about that. Nissan has the most documented version. Their factory service manual calls it the Idle Air Volume Learning Procedure, IAVL. With the engine off and all accessories off, turn the key to ON without starting. Wait 3 seconds, then fully press and release the accelerator pedal 5 times within 5 seconds. After that, wait 7 seconds, then press and hold the accelerator pedal to the floor for roughly 20 seconds. If your vehicle has a check engine light blinking, watch it. On Nissan models, the light stops blinking and stays steady when the computer enters e-oval mode. Release the pedal and wait 10 seconds. Press it to the floor again and hold for another 10 seconds. Then release and turn the key off. Wait at least 10 seconds, then start the engine. The idle should settle within 1 to 2 minutes. If it does not, the Nissan FSM says the e-oval did not complete, and the usual reason is a vacuum leak or a MAF sensor issue that needs to be addressed before the relearn will take. Honda has a simpler version. After cleaning the throttle body or disconnecting the battery, turn all accessories off. Turn the key on for 2 seconds, then start the engine. Do not touch the throttle. Let the car idle until the cooling fans cycle on and off twice, which means the engine has reached full operating temperature. Then let it idle for another 5 to 7 minutes. The computer finishes its relearn during that extended idle. Ford is the easiest of the three. Most Ford electronic throttle systems from the mid-2000s forward relearn automatically during normal driving. Disconnect the battery for 10 minutes after any throttle body service. Reconnect it, start the car, and drive normally for 15 to 20 minutes, including a few wide-open throttle pulls. The system adapts on its own, without a special sequence. Method 3 is the OBD2 scanner relearn, and this is for when the first two methods fail or when you are working on a vehicle that specifically requires a bidirectional scan tool to command the relearn. You do not need a $5,000 dealer scanner for this. A basic bidirectional OBD2 scanner in the $100 to $200 range handles it fine. Plug the scanner into the OBD2 port under the dash. Key ON with the engine off. Navigate to the Special Functions or Adaptations menu for your make and model. Look for Throttle Body Adaptation, TPS Calibration, Idle Relearn, or something similar. The exact wording varies by manufacturer. Select it and follow the on-screen instructions. The scanner commands the computer to forget the old learned values and record new ones. The whole process takes 3 to 5 minutes. Start the engine, let it idle for 2 minutes, clear any remaining codes, and take the car for a short drive with gradual acceleration and deceleration. That is the whole job. Now here is where this turns into the part they would rather you never heard. The reason methods 1 and 2 exist in every service manual is that the engineers who designed the system built the relearn into the software on purpose. They knew carbon builds up. They knew batteries get disconnected. They knew the computer would need to recalibrate, so they wrote a free procedure into the car's own programming. That procedure does not generate a parts sale. It does not generate a billable labor hour. It generates a customer who drives away happy and does not come back for 6 months. And that is exactly why shops do not mention it. Not every shop. I am not going to stand here and call every mechanic a thief, because the good ones will clean the throttle body for $100 to $200, run the relearn, hand you the keys, and tell you to come back in 75,000 miles. Those shops exist, and they deserve your business. But the shops that quote you $500 to $800 for a throttle body replacement on a car that needed a 5-minute key cycle reset are not making a mistake. They are making a margin. The throttle body is a high-dollar part, $200 to $500 for the assembly alone, and the labor to install it is 1 to 2 hours at $150 an hour or more at a dealership. That is a $400 to $800 ticket on a problem that costs $0 to fix correctly. And the customer never knows, because the car does run better after a new throttle body is installed. Of course it does. The new part comes with a fresh sensor and a clean bore. The relearn happens automatically during the first drive cycle. The fix was always the relearn. The customer just paid $600 extra to get there. Here is what you do right now. If your car is surging at idle, hesitating off the line, or throwing a P0121 code, do not let anyone quote you a throttle body before you try the ignition cycle relearn first. 5 minutes of your time and $0 out of your pocket. If the relearn does not fix it, buy a $7 can of throttle body cleaner at any auto parts store, Pull the intake duct off with a screwdriver, wipe the carbon off the plate and the bore with a rag, reassemble it, and run the relearn again. That whole job is 20 minutes and $7. If the code comes back after the cleaning and 2 relearns, then you start looking at the sensor itself. Pull live data on a scan tool and sweep the throttle slowly from closed to open. If the voltage rises smoothly from SAP 0.5 to 4.5 volts with no dead spots, no jumps, no dropouts, the sensor is fine. If the voltage flatlines or spikes at a specific angle, that is a worn resistive track, and the sensor or the throttle body needs to come out. That is the diagnostic process the service manual describes. The one the shop should be walking you through before they hand you a repair estimate. Otto used to tell me that the hardest part to sell a customer was the one they did not need. He said it like a warning, not advice. Tell me in the comments, have you ever been quoted for a throttle body replacement and fixed it yourself with a cleaning or a relearn? I want to hear the make, the model, and what the shop wanted to charge you. Next time, the one sensor that throws more false codes than any other part on a modern car, and the $4 fix the parts stores will not mention because it kills the sale. This was never about a throttle body, friend. It was about being the person who checks the service manual before they check out at the counter.